some lessons don't come from books. They come from bruises. They come from life.
There is no substitute for experience, period.
Some of the biggest successes were a byproduct of failure.
If you want to learn, build, and grow,
Why not learn from somebody who's already paid the price for success?
the wisdom is in the gray.
This is the Graybeard Show.
Graybeard Show. Learn,
Build.
grow.
And welcome to the show. You're listening to the Graybeard Show. My name is Sean Davis, but I go by Graybeard. And you're along with me as I'm talking about business. I'm talking about mentorship. I am a self-improvement expert. I help business leaders become better versions of themselves. And as a byproduct of that, that usually elevates the business. And today, we're going to be talking all about the business health report. I'll share a little bit more information with you a little later, but I've got a very special tool that we've just launched for business owners, specifically leaders in business, business owners, CEOs, any of the type. If you manage people, run a business, responsible, the buck stops with you, well, that's who this show is going to be all about. So I'm glad you're here, and I want to speak directly to the person who is currently sitting in their office after everyone else has gone home, or perhaps you're driving back from a meeting in a car that represents a level of success your younger self only dreamed of. On the outside, everything looks great. The business is moving, revenue is flowing, you are providing for your family and your team. But when the engine is off and the world is quiet, there is a specific kind of heaviness in your chest that doesn't quite make sense to the people around you. You've done what you set out to do. You built the thing. But lately, you've begun to realize that the life you've built isn't the one you actually wanted. That happened to me. I speak truth because it did happen to me. And we need to have a very honest conversation about the architecture of your business. Not your marketing strategy or your sales tactics, but the actual blueprint of the machine you are operating. See, most people start a business because they want freedom. They have a vision. They want to be the masters of their own time and their own destiny. But somewhere along the way, happens all the time, that vision shifts. Maybe the vision doesn't shift, but the operations do, and it happens slowly in small increments. A yes here to a client you didn't really want. A yes there to a project that doesn't really fit your core mission, but you make these sacrifices, you make these concessions. You're in business. It's money, it's revenue. You do it because you need the revenue or because you don't trust anyone else to handle it with the same level of care you provide. I remember a very specific season in my own life when I was working as a financial advisor. By any standard definition used by the world, I was, quote unquote, winning. My client list was growing and the revenue numbers were ticking up every month, but I started to notice a physical reaction I'd have every time a new person signed a contract to work with me. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't a sense of accomplishment. It was a weight. See, in that business, I had essentially, because of the structure of the business, I had to marry my clients. A new client didn't just mean a fee. It meant quarterly meetings, annual meetings, constant reviews, and an ongoing personal responsibility that lived on my shoulders. I was already spent. My calendar was a solid block of obligations. Every win, public world, real world, every win meant less time for me, meant less time for my family, and less energy for anything that actually brought me joy. I had built what I eventually started calling the monster. It was a business that produced revenue, but it was costing me everything to survive it. It didn't free me. It locked me up in a high-paying, high-stress job that I couldn't escape. I had created a machine that required my constant presence, my constant performance, and my constant personal sacrifice just to stay operational. If you feel like you are currently feeding your own monster that never seems satisfied, I want you to know that you're not alone. And more importantly, you aren't a failure. You've just followed a blueprint for building a business that didn't account for your own freedom. This is where I can help. To help people navigate this, I use a framework of 7 specific pillars in business. A framework that you can test your business against, that you can overlay against your business. Those 7 pillars are revenue, marketing, operations, profitability, team, mindset, and vision. Most owners spend nearly all of their time staring at the revenue pillar. How do I make more money? How much money's coming in? Thinking that more money will fix the pressure. But usually the pressure isn't a revenue problem. It's an architecture problem. In the first part of our journey, I want to look at the last pillar in business, vision. Because when your vision is out of alignment, you hit a blocker I call the trap. So this framework, this business health report, 7 key areas, right? 20 questions would take you probably less than 2 minutes to complete, but it will help to identify up to 21 different blockers that you could be experiencing in your business. Blockers are roadblocks or challenges that you need to overcome. You need to see your way through, under, around. Some of you may be aware of what they are. Some of you may not have any idea, but it's important to identify through a health report of your business, through those 7 key areas, what is working and what is not working. Revenue, marketing, operations, profitability, team, mindset, and vision. The trap, see, here's the thing. When you look at the pillar vision, when your vision is out of alignment, that blocker, I call the trap. The trap is what I call a hollow victory. It's the ultimate paradox of a high performer. It occurs when your business has become a machine that requires so much of you, so much maintenance, or has moved so far from what your original passion was that it no longer serves your life. Instead, your life is being sacrificed to serve the machine. You achieved the goal, but the cost was too high. You look successful to the world, but you feel like you're living in a golden cage. When you're in the trap, this is one of those 21 blockers. When you're in the trap, you find yourself resenting the very thing you spent years building. You look at your calendar and you see a list of obligations instead of opportunities. You might be hitting your financial targets, but the satisfaction is gone. It's the feeling of winning a game you no longer want to play. But there's a second blocker that often pairs with the trap. It's called the fog. The fog happens when your sense of purpose becomes vague and confused. You're moving, you're busy, your phone is constantly buzzing, but you can't remember the last time you felt a sense of why. Why am I doing this? You're just reaching to the loudest fire in the room. You've lost the ability to see 6 months down the road because you're entirely consumed with surviving the next 6 hours. When you're in the fog, your business loses its edge. You start trying to be everything to everyone because you've lost the clarity of who you are and who you're actually meant to serve. You're drifting, even if you're drifting at a high rate of speed. There's an ancient truth, biblical truth, that asks what it profits a person to gain the whole world but lose their soul. In business, we don't lose our souls in one dramatic, cinematic moment of compromise. We lose your soul in business in 15-minute increments. We lose them by agreeing to meetings we shouldn't be in. We lose them by tolerating chaos we should have systemized years ago. We lose them by building a business that makes us a super employee rather than an independent architect of the business. I want you to take a breath for a second and just listen to the silence of your own office or your own car. Is this you? Am I speaking to you? If you feel trapped in a machine of your own making, there is a way out, but it requires you to stop working harder and start looking at the bars of the cage you put yourself in. We're going to measure the strength of those bars today, not by your bank balance, but by your freedom. Think about the last time you took a true vacation. One where you didn't check your email, one where you didn't take a quick client call, one where the business didn't feel like a tether pulled tight around your neck. If you can't remember that day, then the vision for your business has been replaced by the demands of the monster. We talk a lot about scaling in the business world, but you cannot scale a soul. You cannot scale a person who's already at 100% capacity. To find the freedom you were looking for when you started this journey, you have to look at the foundation of your business. We have to look at why we are doing this in the first place. Why are you in business? What brought you into business in the first place? What did you connect with that made you want to be a part of what you're doing? And I'm not here to give you a motivational speech. That's not what this is. I'm here to give you a diagnostic mirror for your business, a business health report, 20 questions. Takes less than probably 2-3 minutes for you to complete, but it will isolate for you up to one of 21 different major blockers, the primary point at which you need to start. If you're going to improve your business, if you're going to fix your business, you would start at this first primary blocker, the number one place where your business is screaming for your attention. Do you know where that is? Do you know what that is? Over the next 6 segments, we're going to walk through some of these other pillars. We're going to look at why your sales process is likely owner dependent, a blocker I call the cage. We're going to look at the feast or famine cycle in your marketing. We're going to look at why your team feels like a group of followers waiting for you to save the day. We're going to examine the profitability of your time, not just your money. But it all starts here with the vision. It starts with admitting that you want more than just a successful business. You want a life that you actually enjoy living, that the business provides for you. You want to build a legacy, not just a ledger. Stability comes from knowing where you're going. Freedom comes from building a system, building a business that can get there without you being the only engine. Coming up next, we're going to look at the revenue pillar. I'm going to tell you why that being the best salesperson in your company, the hero closer, is actually a strategic failure that is keeping you from ever being truly free. But right now, I'd like to offer this to you. If you're listening, if you have a business, if you're a business leader, I'm a self-improvement expert. I help business leaders be better leaders. And as a byproduct of that, I help businesses become better businesses. If you'd like to take the business health report, all you simply have to do is text quiz. It's just a quiz, 20 questions, very thoughtful 20 questions that then isolate the biggest area of your business that needs attention. And then we will also subcategorize the biggest blocker. Not only that, free of charge, no angles here. I will send you a 12 to 15 page PDF that will then help you address that primary blocker, the biggest blocker you need to attend to in your business. All you need to do to take the quiz is text quiz to 84503. Just text that 4-letter word, QUIZ, quiz, to 84503. So key that 84503 number, 84503. Key that in like that's my cell number. Like you're going to reach out to Graybeard. You're going to text Graybeard directly. So my number, instead of being a 10-digit number, is going to be a 5-digit number. 84503, and you're going to text me one word, quiz. That lets me know you want it. We will deliver it to you automatic. You don't even need to provide a phone number or an email address initially to go through the quiz. You will see the results right away, but it's the best business assessment tool with the shortest amount of questions that I've seen, and it helps me if we're going to work together, if you're going to be curious about where you might want to start if we were working together, and there's no angle. You don't have to. No obligation. But this quiz talks about your revenue, operations, team, marketing, profitability, mindset, and vision. To take the quiz, we will send it to you right now via text message. All you've got to do is just simply text quiz to 84503. All right, so the first section of this particular show, we talked about the monster, the vision pillar, that business that grows so large, so hungry that it begins to consume the person who built it. We talked about the trap, that hollow victory where you win the game but lose your peace. And now I want to move on to the second pillar of a stable business, which is revenue. Now, when most owners hear the word revenue, they immediately think about more. They think about more leads, more closing, a bigger bottom line. But if you're listening to my voice and you feel exhausted right now, more is often the last thing you actually need. Because if your revenue is built on a flawed foundation, then more revenue just means a heavier weight for you. That's what I did. I did that in financial services. So I want to talk to you about a blocker I call the cage. The cage occurs when your business is entirely owner dependent. specifically in a way where money enters the bank account. If every dollar that comes into your company requires your personal presence, your personal charisma, your personal magic to close the deal, you aren't a CEO. You are a super employee trapped in a machine that cannot breathe without you. See, I remember when I was building my firm, I took great pride in being the hero closer. I was the one who could walk into a room, read the person across from me, find the path to a yes. I thought my ability to sell was my greatest asset. I told myself that no one could care for the client like I could, and certainly no one could explain the value of what we did as well as I could. But there was a hidden cost to that ego of mine. Because I was the only one who could sell, I was the only one who could never take a day off. I remember being on vacation with my family, sitting on a balcony while they played in the pool, and I was hunched over a laptop taking a quick sales call because only I could handle this one. In that moment, I realized I had built a prison out of my own talent. My skill at selling hadn't freed me. It had tethered me to the desk. I was spending $75,000 a month to keep the lights on. And because I was the primary source of revenue, I was the only engine in the car. If I stopped pedaling, the lights went out. That is the cage. It is the exhaustion of knowing that if you get sick or if you want to go away for a month, that revenue drops to zero. And I want to ask you a question that might feel a bit uncomfortable. It's what I call the 30-day litmus test. If you vanished today, no phone, no email, no checking in, and you stayed gone for 30 days, what would happen to your new sales? What would happen to the revenue of your business? For most of you listening, the honest answer is that the business would stall. And that is a dangerous way to build a business. It's a dangerous way to live. It's a burden that affects how you sleep, how you treat your spouse, how you show up in the world. You aren't building an asset. You're continuing to build a job you can't quit. You're building your cage. The reason we stay in the cage is often because of a second blocker, the leak. The leak is what happens when you don't have a repeatable process. So you rely on hustle to make up for the holes in your business bucket. You have leads coming in, but because you're so busy being the hero, you don't have time to follow up properly. You're leaving money on the table every single day, not because you don't have the leads, but because you don't have the system to capture them. We often think that speed to lead is just a business buzzword, but in reality, it's about stewardship. If a person reaches out to you for help and you take 3 days to get back to them because you were stuck in a meeting you shouldn't have been in the first place, you failed them and you failed your business. The leak is the fortune that is currently sitting in your follow-up folder, waiting for a process that doesn't require your personal genius to execute it. You see, a business that relies on an A-grade owner to do everything will always be outperformed by a business that relies on a B-grade player following an A-grade process. In other words, you don't want to be the superhero sole proprietor that does everything. It'd be better to do 85% of that and have a much better process that your whole team can follow. I had to learn this the hard way. I had to learn that my quote unquote magic was actually my biggest bottleneck. It was my biggest problem. I had to start documenting how I spoke to people. I had to build what I called the sales genome, taking the brilliance out of my head and putting it onto a repeatable script and repeatable sequence that someone else could follow. This is where the faith frame comes back into view. We are all called to be stewards of the resources we are given. If you're the bottleneck in your own revenue, in your own business, you aren't being a good steward of your time or your team's potential. You are keeping the business small because your ego likes to be the hero. That might sting for some, but if it stings, it means it's true. It takes a great deal of humility to admit that the business might actually run better if you weren't the one doing all the selling. It takes a shift in mindset to realize that your value isn't in closing the deal, but in building the system that closes the deal. That's the gold. I want you to think about the money you've made in the last 90 days. How much of it required your sweat? How much of it required your sacrifice sacrificing a dinner with your family or a Saturday morning or a vacation or a weekend? If the answer is all of it, then you're in the cage. But there is a path to the door. We can open that cage. It starts with realizing that sales is not a personality trait. It is a clinical process. It's about moving a person from awareness to a close on rails, a path so clear and so defined that you don't have to be the one driving the train every single time. When you fix the revenue pillar, something incredible happens. The weight starts to lift. That weight you feel, that pit in your stomach. Somebody out there in Radio Land hears me. You realize that you can actually provide more value to more people because you aren't the limited resource anymore. You're moving from being the primary source of fuel to being the architect of the engine, to being the steward of the business. You're starting to work on the business instead of being consumed in the business. Coming up next, we're going to look at the marketing pillar. Marketing is where I shine. I will tell you that. I've got a marketing mind. I love marketing. We're going to talk about that next. We're going to talk about the feast or famine cycle, a blocker I call the drift. And I'm going to show you why most marketing feels like a gamble and how to turn it into a predictable machine that brings the right people to your door while you're sleeping. Stay with me. We're going to find the key to that cage. But if you're listening right now, if you'd like to take the Graybeard quiz, it's a business health report assessment tool. 20 questions in total, probably take you 2 minutes, 3 minutes at most. Looks at your business in 7 key areas: revenue, operations, team, marketing, profitability, mindset, and vision. I have the quiz. You can take the quiz. And at the end of the quiz, if you decide to take the quiz, there's up to 21 different combinations of strategic blockers that your business might be realizing or feeling. You don't need to speak with me. You don't need to have an appointment. We will send you a 12 to 15 page PDF summary of your worst blocker based on how you answer this quiz. It's a resource that's jam-packed with information. It has strategies for how to tackle that. And it's just the beginning process of what we're trying to make available to business leaders out there. You see, I am a self-improvement expert. I help business leaders become better people themselves, which as a byproduct of that usually helps the business produce more revenue, be leaner, be a better business as a result. Try me on. Take the quiz. If you want to take the quiz, all you got to do is text quiz to 84503. Just take out your smartphone, go to your texting app, text 84503 like it's my cell phone number. Instead of it being a 10-digit number you're familiar with, it's only a 5-digit number, 84503. Text me one word, quiz. I will send you the quiz. You can take it immediately. We will drop it right into the text message on your phone. You will be able to take it and see how much value you might get out of 20 strategic questions. Text quiz to 84503. All right, if you're just joining us, we're walking through a framework, a diagnostic mirror for businesses and business owners designed to help you see the business you've built for what it actually is. Not what you tell your banker it is, and not what you tell your friends at the club it is. We're looking for the truth. In our previous segments, we spoke about the vision pillar and how heavy realization that you might be feeding a monster rather than building a legacy. We spoke about the revenue pillar and the hero closer's cage, where your own talent and your own ego potentially become the very thing that traps you at your desk. Now I want to move into a pillar that causes more anxiety, more wasted money, and more performative work than almost any other. We're going to talk about marketing. For the person listening to my voice who feels tired, the one who is already working 60 hours a week, the word marketing often feels like an invitation to do more work you don't have time for. It feels like a loud, neon-lit room full of people shouting for attention. And quite frankly, you're too exhausted to shout. You might even feel a sense of disdain for it. You think, if I'm good at what I do, people should just find me. Because of that, many business owners treat marketing as a extra or a someday project or a necessary evil they attend to only when the bank account forces their hand. But marketing is not an extra. Marketing is the heartbeat of your business. If the heartbeat is irregular, The whole body suffers from a lack of oxygen. This leads us to the primary blocker in the marketing pillar. It's called the drift. Again, my assessment tool, the Graybeard quiz for business owners, 20 questions. Take you through 20 questions in those 7 key areas: revenue, marketing, operations, profitability, team, mindset, and vision. And then there are 21 additional combinations of blockers. I'm going to talk about the drift. The drift is what I call the feast or famine cycle. It's a psychological and financial roller coaster that ages a business owner faster than almost anything else. It's the enemy of peace and the destroyer of the Sabbath. It starts with a feast. You have a few good months, maybe a few big contracts land at once, or a long-term project finally pays out. You're busy. You're fulfilled. You're finally seeing the numbers move in the right direction. But because you're so busy fulfilling that work, because you're in the trenches making sure the clients are happy, you stop doing the things that brought the clients to the door in the first place. You stop the outreach, you stop the networking, you stop the content, you stop the value first sequence. You tell yourself, I'll get back to marketing once things quiet down. But quiet is a dangerous word in business. Quiet is the sound of a dying pipeline. Eventually, the projects end. The contracts are fulfilled. You look at your calendar for the next 30 days, and for the first time in months, it's white. It's empty. Suddenly, the feast is over, and you've drifted into famine. Panic sets in. I've lived in this panic. I know the feeling of sitting at a desk at 2 o'clock in the morning, staring at a spreadsheet and calculating exactly how many days of runway money I have left before I can't meet payroll or the mortgage. I remember looking at the $75,000 a month in expenses that I had in financial service, doing a radio show, doing 6 radio shows, and realizing that I was staring at a giant, gaping mouth that needed to be fed, and I had no food in the pantry. When you're in the famine stage of the drift, you don't just lose money, you lose your dignity. You become desperate. You start taking on vampire clients, the one who pay a little but demand everything because you need the cash flow to survive. You lower your prices maybe. You compromise your vision maybe. You drift further and further away from the business you actually wanted to build. You're no longer an architect, you're a scavenger. The drift. One of those 21 blockers. You take this quiz. It's one of them. Maybe it's you. The drift is a deception. It makes you feel like you're too busy to market when you're winning and too broke to market when you're losing. It keeps you in a state of perpetual instability. It prevents you from ever truly resting. How can you take a Sunday off? How can you truly observe a day of rest when you know that the famine is coming? When you're in the drift, even your vacations are just waits for the next crisis. Why do we stay in this cycle? Usually it's because of a secondary blocker I call the ghost. The ghost is what happens when you have no consistent value first sequence. To your ideal prospects, you are invisible. You only appear when you want something. You show up in their inbox or in their feed or at the office only when you are the famine stage and you need a sale. Think about the psychology of the person on the other end of that. Think about your ideal prospect, someone who has a real problem that you're uniquely qualified to solve. They're out there right now struggling. They are looking for a guide. They are looking for stability. And then you show up out of nowhere with a pitch. You're like the neighbor who only knocks on the door when they need to borrow a ladder or $50. There is no relationship. There is no trust. There is no evidence that you actually care about solving their problem. This is only evidence that you're hungry for their check. Oof. Oof. That might sting to somebody out there in Radio Land. I've lived it. It kind of stings when I say it because I lived it. I know what it's like. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be dismissive. All I'm really trying to do is be helpful. If that stung a little bit, it's probably because there's some truth to it. And you know what? God does not entrust heavy truths to careless hands. I'm trying to be sensitive, But I also want you to acknowledge that there's a problem. When you are a ghost, when you are forcing your business to rely on timing rather than trust, you are hoping that you happen to show up at the exact moment someone is ready to buy. But that isn't a strategy, it's a gamble. And as a business owner, you shouldn't be gambling with the resources God has entrusted to you. I want to pause here and speak to the why behind this from a perspective of stewardship. If you have been given a gift, the ability to protect someone's wealth, to lead a team, to build something of lasting value, whatever your gifting is, all of us uniquely are born with gifts from God, then you have a responsibility to make sure the people who need that help can find you. If you are a ghost because of how you're running your business, when you disappear into the background, you are hiding your light in darkness. You're allowing people to suffer or struggle because you haven't built the bridge that leads them to your solution. Marketing, when done right, is not an act of the ego. It's an act of service. It is the process of saying uniquely in your voice, with your vision, I see where you are, Mr. Prospect, Mr. Client. I understand your pain, and I have a path to help you. That's exactly what I'm doing now. Right now, as you hear my voice, I have lived this. I have made every mistake that you can make in business. How do you think I learned how to find success? You got to make enough mistakes in business to know how to do it right. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a teacher, but somehow, some way, God blessed me with the ability to now have had 3 7-figure different businesses that I was able to run and create. 3 different businesses. Made all the mistakes in the world that you can benefit from out in Radioland. I've made so many mistakes. That's what's given rise to my gray hair and my gray beard. That's where my name came from. All of those hairs are examples of money lost, decisions made, failures realized. Now I feel a calling. It's an act of service. It's a process. It's exactly what I said. It's the process of saying, I see where you are. If you're out there running a business, if anything I've said is landed, if anything is connected, if your spirit senses that what I'm saying is truth to you, I want you to know I understand. I understand your pain. I think I can help you. I have a path to help you, but you cannot do that if you're drifting. You cannot do that if you're only appearing when your bank is low. I want you to visualize the person you're meant to serve. Let's imagine your ideal prospect, your ideal client. Let's call him John. John is sitting at his kitchen table tonight, worried about the very things you have answers to, but he doesn't know you exist. Or he saw you once 3 months ago, but then you vanished because you were too busy with other clients. You became a ghost to him because you didn't have a system, a sequence to stay in front of him with value. He's going to do or go work with someone else. He might go to someone else who isn't as good as you, or someone who doesn't have his best interests at heart, simply because they were visible and you were not. That's the cost of the drift. It's not just your stress. It's the missed opportunity to serve the people you were called to serve. I remember my own transition out of this. I had to stop being a quote-unquote hunter who had to go out and kill something every day just to eat. I had to become a gardener. A gardener doesn't wait until they are hungry to plant seeds. They understand the seasons. They know that if they plant consistently today, they will eat predictably tomorrow. They build systems, irrigation, fences, soil rotation that ensure the garden grows even when they aren't standing over it with a watering can. Your marketing should be your garden. It should be a system that provides value to people while you're sleeping. It should be a sequence of communications that solve small problems for your prospects long before they ever see an invoice from you. It should be value first. Imagine what it would feel like to wake up on the first of the month and know exactly how many leads are in your pipeline. Not because you spent all of yesterday hunting, but because your garden is working. Imagine the peace that comes with knowing that the famine is over for good. Again, this assessment, this business health report, the Graybeard quiz, what I've been talking about, if you take it, it'll identify 7 key areas of your business: revenue, marketing, operations, profitability, team, mindset, and vision. And it will isolate 21 out of all of those 7 categories. You've got one that's the worst, one that's the lowest, one that's barking, screaming at you for attention. That low category in there's going to be a subsection of 3 more blockers, business blockers, problems, issues that need to be solved. We will isolate the exact problem that your business is having. I will send you a 12 to 15 page summary of how to fix that problem, and I won't ask anything from you other than an email to deliver it to you. No fee, no cost, value first. I want to serve you out in Radioland. All you've got to do if you're a business owner, see, I'm a self-improvement expert. I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. I help business owners be better business owners. I help business leaders be better people. And as a byproduct of that, better in business. Take the quiz. All you've got to do, takes less than 3 minutes. Take the quiz by texting quiz to 84503. Take out your smartphone, go to your texting app, key in a new number like you're texting me. I've got a 10-digit cell phone number. I'm not giving you that. I'm giving you my 84503 number. But if you text that 1 4-letter word, quiz, just text quiz to 84503, that lets me know you're out there, that you hear me, that you value that I'm trying to give of my time and my knowledge to help you be better. Not only as a human, but be a better business person, to serve the people that you are entrusted to serve, to reconnect with the mission that you started. All you got to do is text quiz to 84503. Take it. See if there's value. See if you walk away with something that you can use. My mission is to help people be better. I invite you to take the quiz to see if I can help you be better. Text quiz to 84503. All right, moving on. We're moving into the heart of the framework right now. If you've been with us or just joining us through the first 3 segments, you started to see a little bit of your business reflection in the mirror. We looked at the vision pillar and the heavy reality of the monster you might be feeding. We've looked at the revenue pillar and the hero closer's cage, where your own talent and your own ego are the very things keeping you trapped at the desk. We just finished discussing marketing pillar, the difference between being a desperate hunter in the drift or a peaceful gardener tending to a value first sequence that brings life to others while you sleep. Now, we must turn our attention to the engine room of your business. We're going to look at operations. I know that for many of you listening, this is the area of the business that you find the least sexy. It's not the thrill of the big sale. It's not the creative spark of new marketing campaign. Operations is kind of like the plumbing of the business. It's the wiring behind the drywall. It's the invisible, often tedious systems that allow a business to function. But here is the uncomfortable truth that I had to learn through years of trial and error. If your operations are broken, your freedom is a mathematical impossibility. You can have the best marketing in the world and the highest top-line revenue in your industry, but if your operations are built on a foundation of chaos, you'll never be anything more than a glorified, high-priced babysitter of your own company. You'll be successful in the eyes of the world, but you'll be a slave to the machine you built. That brings us to our primary blocker in operations. It's called the tether. The tether is a specific, exhausting kind of dependency. It's the invisible cord that connects every single task, every single decision, and every single problem back to you, the owner. If you are, quote unquote, tethered, it means that even when you aren't the one physically doing the work, you are the one who has to authorize the work. You are the ultimate bottleneck in the business. Your team can't move left or right. They can't solve a client's problem. And they can't complete a project without asking for your permission, your input, or your final look. I remember a time in my own business, back when I was struggling with that $75,000 a month in overhead I had, where I felt like I was being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. I would try to sit down to do deep strategic work, the kind of work that actually moves the needle of your business, the kind of work I actually enjoyed. And every 4 minutes, there would be a knock on the door or a ping on the phone or a quick question in the hallway. Graybeard, how do we handle this client complaint? Graybeard, where's the file for the Smith account? Graybeard, can you check this email before I send it? I used to tell myself that this was a sign of my importance. I told myself that I was the hub of the wheel and that a hub is necessary for the wheel to turn. I thought that being needed made me a great leader. I wore my busyness like a badge of honor, but the truth was much uglier than that. The truth was that I was the failure as an architect of the business. I had built a business that relied on my tribal knowledge rather than a documented system. I was tethered. I couldn't even go to the bathroom or take my wife to dinner without the business pausing to wait for me to give it instructions. The tether is what happens when your business lives in your head instead of on a manual. It is the result of choosing speed over systems. You think it's faster to just do it yourself or faster to just give the answer than it is to write down the process. But every time you give an answer instead of a process, you are tightening the cord around your own neck. You are ensuring that you can never truly leave, that you can never truly be free. You are training your team to be dependent, not empowered. That usually leads us directly into our second blocker or secondary blocker. It's called the chaos. The chaos is what I call the single point of failure syndrome. It is the total lack of a repeatable, documented roadmap for how things get done in your office or in your business. When you are in the chaos, every day feels like you're reinventing the wheel. Even though you perform the same service 100 times, it feels like a custom, brand new project every single time. There is no standard operating procedure, SOPs. There is just the way we feel like doing it today. In a state of chaos, your team is constantly anxious. Even if they don't say it, they don't know if they are doing a good job because of the definition of a good job doesn't even exist. Or it can change based on your mood. Or it changes based on how much sleep you got the night before or how much pressure you're feeling from the bank. Because there is no system, there is no consistency. Your clients get an A-grade experience when you happen to be involved, but they get a C-grade or D-grade experience when you aren't. This is where the weight, at least for me, this was my lived experience. This is where the weight of the monster becomes unbearable. You realize that to maintain the quality of your brand, to protect your reputation, you have to be involved in everything. You become the ultimate firefighter. You spend your entire day running from one small blaze to another, soot on your face, exhaustion in your bones, never realizing that you are the one who forgot to install the sprinkler system in the first place. You know, I want to speak to the spiritual cost of this for a moment because this goes deeper than just business efficiency. In the scriptures, we see a beautiful, consistent picture of order. We see that God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. When we live in a state of business chaos, when we allow our operations to be a tangled mess of tribal knowledge and owner dependency, we are not living in peace. We are living in a state of constant low-grade adrenaline that is counterfeit for the true purpose of your life. We're living in a way that suggests we are the ones who hold the universe together rather than trusting in a higher order. We think we're being diligent by working so hard and answering every question, but true diligence is building a house that can stand on its own. If your house collapses the moment you walk out the front door, you haven't built a house, you've built a tent. And a leader of your caliber shouldn't be living in a tent. The tether and the chaos are the primary reasons why business owners burn out. It's not the hard work that kills the spirit. It's the redundant work. It's the exhaustion of answering the same question for the 400th time. It's the frustration of seeing a mistake made by a team member and realizing that you never actually gave them a checklist to prevent that mistake from happening. You're mad at them, but the fault is yours. You provided the paycheck, but you didn't provide the path. Now, I want you to imagine a different reality for a moment. Close your eyes if you're not driving. Imagine a business where every core process is documented and clear. Imagine that when a new person joins your team, they don't have to follow you around like a shadow for 3 weeks, draining your energy. Instead, you hand them the field guide. You show them a library of short, simple videos, what I call the Loom library, where you have recorded yourself performing the simple task, repeatable task, once and only once. Imagine a business where you are the librarian of systems rather than a firefighter of problems. Imagine the silence in your office because people know exactly what to do and how to do it. Imagine the peace of mind that comes from knowing that the quality of your service is guaranteed by the system, not by your personal presence. When you solve the operational pillar problems, you are moving from being tethered to being truly free. You move from chaos to clarity. You start to realize that your genius isn't actually that complicated. It's just a series of repeatable steps that you've been doing for years. And once those steps are on paper, they can be performed by someone else, often better than you can do them yourself because they aren't as distracted by the other 6 pillars of your business. That's the hardest part for the ego to swallow. Many of us like being the hero. We like being the only ones with the answers. We feel like we like the feeling of our phone blowing up when people need us. We've equated being needed with being valuable. But you have to ask yourself a hard question. Do you want to be needed or do you want to be free? Do you want to be the bottleneck that limits your company's growth, or do you want to be the leader who empowers others to succeed? I had to learn to kill my ego in the business engine room and operations. I had to realize that if I was the only one who could do a task, I was the one who was standing in the way of my company's mission. I was the single point of failure. If I achieved a hollow victory and doubled my business tomorrow without fixing my operations, I wouldn't be twice as successful. I would be twice as tethered. I would be twice as stressed. The chaos would simply scale with the revenue. If you're listening to this and you feel that tether pulling at your neck, if you feel that chaos of a business that relies on your daily magic to survive, I want you to stop and breathe. The solution isn't to hire more people. If you hire people into a system of chaos, you just get expensive chaos. If you just get more people to manage and more people to ask you questions. The solution is to document. The solution is to create the standard. I want you to look at your calendar for the last week. Truly look at it. How many of those hours were spent doing things that truly, absolutely only you can do? And how many of those hours were spent doing things that could be done by a system or a trained team member if you just took the 4 hours required to build the roadmap? We often say that we don't have time to build the system. But that is like a person saying they don't have time to stop for gas because they're too busy driving for the next appointment. Eventually, the engine's going to sputter and stop. You're running on fumes. And the chaos is the sound of the engine knocking. I want to invite you to consider the 30-day litmus test again. But this time, apply it specifically to your operations. If you vanished for 30 days, starting right now, no laptop, no emergency calls, no Slack, would your team know how to fill the orders to your standard? Would they know how to handle the unusual client requests? Would they know where the files are, how the billing works, and how to represent your brand with excellence? If the answer is no, then you are tethered. You are living in the chaos. You are a prisoner of your own knowledge. But there is a path forward. It's the path of the architect. It's the path of moving that brilliance out of your head and into the foundation we're building. It's about creating a business that is truly an asset, something that has value separate from your personal daily labor. When the plumbing works, you don't think about it. You just turn on the tap and the water flows. Your business should be the same way. It should be a quiet, efficient machine that allows you to focus on the vision, the mindset, and the people. And I want you to think about what you would do with an extra 10 hours a week. What would you do if the tether was cut? Would you spend more time with your spouse? Would you finally take that trip you've been putting off? Would you invest that time back into the strategic growth that you've been too busy to address? Freedom isn't just a word. It's a result of order. Here's what I would suggest you do. Every bit of knowledge that I've had in business. So a little background. I'm 55 years old this month. Been in business for 36 years of some form or fashion. I've had the blessing, the great blessing and the honor of being able to, over my career, have started 3 completely different, separate and distinct businesses that ultimately scaled into 7-figure revenue for me. First one was financial services, spent 22 years in that business. Made a majority of my mistakes in that business, for sure. 22 years. I was just a baby when I started it. Sold that business in 2017, and then my wife and I thought we would be the California version of Chip and Joanna Gaines. We started to flip houses in Northern California in the Sacramento area. Ended up flipping 12 high-end homes, did very well at it. We'd buy a house that was in a really desirable neighborhood. We'd buy an old house, 50, 60 years old. For example, a house that still had carpet in the bathrooms. Gross. Carpet around the toilets. Gross. Ugh. We'd buy that. We'd add 1,000 square feet to it. I could build it about $250 a square foot. We were selling in a market or in a neighborhood that was getting $500 a square foot. So adding 1,000, 1,500 was like 200 to 300 grand of profitability. And then transitioned out of that to own an energy company, which I still own today. Last 5-6 years, I've owned a solar energy company called SolarWise, and have had the great honor and the great privilege of being able to scale all of those businesses, make all the mistakes in the world to ultimately be somebody that might be able to help you. That's why I created the Graybeard Business Quiz. Find what's stuck, fix what matters. I invite you, if you are a business leader, business owner, CEO, executive level, business leader of any type, take the quiz. Take the Graybeard Business Quiz. It's 20 questions in total. Grade your answers. Once you're done with the quiz, you'll get a secondary quiz. It's only 6 questions, and these 6 questions will help to isolate one of those 21 business blockers. Once you complete that, if you get through the whole thing, doesn't take a lot of time, get through the whole thing, I will send you a 12 to 15 page document that will then specifically tell you how to address that particular business blocker that you're experiencing. All of it. The only thing I ask for is an email so I can send it to you. That's it. No money, nothing else. You can take the quiz by texting quiz to 84503. There's a life quiz, there's a business quiz. If you text quiz to 84503, so if you take out your smartphone, go to your texting app, key in 84503 like it's my cell phone. It's not. It's only a 5-digit number. Key that in 84503, then text one word, 4 letters, QUIZ, quiz to 84503. We will text you a link to that. Or you can go to graybeardquiz.com. Your choice. But that quiz will be that assessment. It'll be that mirror. It'll be that tool I use, especially if you want to work with me as a business mentor. So take that quiz. Text quiz to 84503. And rest assured, my friends, I'm going to be back here same time, same place next week to talk more mentorship, more growth, more business growth. Graybeard out. This is The Graybeard Show.
Graybeard Show. Learn.
Build.
Grow.